happy. Okay, so I have good news. So we're gonna try a few different things. So as I mentioned, I redid this whole class in the winter, and then but I was only redid it with the intention of making it all online. But then we had a medical leave, so but I did find some stuff that I could, kind of use, and then we'll see how we like it and how it goes. So this is what I've come up with. When we go into our class, let me make sure I'm sharing yet. No, I'm sharing the wrong one, bugger. Good thing I have a computer, because I share the wrong stuff. Look at that. Bloody bugger. Let's see. Let's see. But how am I? Okay, there. Now I'm sharing the right stuff. Awesome. Okay, so what I did here is I added class materials. So this is the first. So first you're going to download. We're going to do module 1 today, hopefully. And then module, or most of it, I hope. And then, so you're first going to download this guy. So download him, which is the module 1, the concept notebook. And then you're going to download this guy. So the best way to do this, I think, is on screen. So download both of those. You're going to have, so I'll have the PowerPoint here, but then you're going to have the notebook, and that's where you're going to enter, hopefully, your notes. Because we'll see how the first test goes. If it doesn't go well, then you might be able to use your notes for the second test, or we'll see how it goes. And I just can't figure out why that's not working. Sorry, back there. Bugger, I've tried everything I know. So if we go here, what you see here is basically, let's try this guy. Let's see, it's open. Perfect. So what you see here is, it's bigger. A PDF, hopefully, of your textbook almost. Oh, she wants me to sign in. 1 minute. We'll share. Jovi, so that way she'll behave for us. So she behaves as she's not behaving now. She likes it. Okay, so maybe she. So basically, when you download this, okay, I don't need to take a tour. I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So basically, what you see here is a bunch of pages, and then you'll have pages for notes as well. So I think so. I'm trying something different. So this is what's known as a backward design type of interactive, I guess, lecture, because this is what I like. So we're going to try it. So this is, and then since you really don't have a book, you'll see all of these. And then this. So then you have, so basically then what I recommend you keep this open on your notebook because it'll help you to study. So this will be kind of like your study guide for your midterm. And then what we'll do is, this class is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so we'll probably do the modules, and then Friday we'll do some exam questions that way you don't freak out as to what's on the exam. So, and that way you can write notes, and that way you don't have to remember everything because you'll see a bunch of names and stuff, but it'll kind of coincide. Okay? And so each module should have something like this, or I'll make it. And then that way it's like a good study guide and a good way to remember everything. Everybody found it okay?
Can you run back how you got to that?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So if we go into module 2, let me make sure I'm in the right module. Yeah, so the dates, so I don't forget. Yeah, because I'll screw stuff up. Then I just added this morning. So for each module, so this, we're going to download this and we're going to go over it. But this right here, module 1, investigating MIS concept notebook, that's what I'm calling it. So, and then we'll have one for Wednesday too. And that way, so since it isn't really a book and it's not like you're reading a chapter, then what you're doing is hopefully, I'm trying to make it less reading, hopefully, and more just jotting and doing things. So that's where it's at. So that document should be there with all the number of pages. Good? We found it all right? Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, make sure I didn't hide it or something, because Lord knows I'm really good at that too, right? Screwing stuff up. So let's see here. So then what we'll do is, so we'll go over the main, so basically what will work here, if it opens, is then you should have the PowerPoint. So now I'm of the school of thought, like I don't like keeping things to myself. So you shouldn't have to write because I don't write. So you'll have access, you'll have it all the time. So I'm gonna try to add as many of them as I have on there, and then you can fill in the blank to the notebook for what you need for the test. All right, everybody with me? Cool. It's a lot of stuff, but hopefully we'll get you through it. So it's a little different than like, I guess, a traditional class because you're supposed to be actively listening. And then that would be your study guide. Let me make sure there's no questions on. Zoom, we good? We found everything okay? Okay. That's why I bring in the computer, so by the time I ask Zoom, and then I'll be like waiting and waiting and waiting for things. All right, so MIS is what you're supposed to hopefully be learning, right? So that is Management Information System. Now, I am an AIS lover, but I'm also accounting information systems because that's what I like, right? And basically, we're trying to put together here all aspects of the business. So why is it so important to understand MIS? Because your data is probably one of the most important areas in a business. And you want to make sure that you know how to manage the technology and not have it breach, because we know when it breaches, when it's breached, you lose money, and we hate losing money. So that's not good. So what we're trying to do here is try to put everything together, right? People, businesses, and ideas. How does that work? Really hard. But I think people are the most difficult component. So if you could work in a company and have 50 people under you or no people under you, which would you take? Go ahead.
50.
You would? Why? God bless you.
You can set up in a structure so you only have like 2 or 3 people actually reporting to you. I think just divvy up the work a lot more evenly then.
Okay. Mason, what did you think?
Depends on what kind of business.
Okay, software development, maybe
50.
50.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay, awesome. I agree. Well, people are the most complex part of any information system. I'll tell you that, and it's difficult to motivate people, and it's also even more difficult to get people to do what you want them to do when you want them to do it. So the whole point here is just to see how you can go about making recommendations to certain systems. So here you see we have like human resources management, we have, customer relations. And so within your MIS, then you have here, so this is your customer relationship. Work. Here, customer relationship management. We also have ERP, which we're going to talk about, right? Enterprise resource planning. So we're going to try to put everything together in this MIS, because we don't ever say like long words, right? And so we want to try to put everything in a format that we can use the data, but more importantly, that we have access to the data and that we're able to use that data to make decisions. So from a business perspective, when you're thinking about IT, it's all about how to make it bigger, better, faster, right? Or how to make it efficient, but you also want to use the data that you have. The hardest part, I think, in any company is that you have a lot of data, but it's not consistent, right? So, and we're going to talk about databases because that's important too. So we want to be able to retrieve the data, put it in a way that we can use it to make decisions, right? So we call that data-driven decisions. And that's like a new buzzword now in business, data-driven decisions. So obviously we have all types of communication, email. How many emails do we get a day?
Many.
Okay, what's too many? I agree with you wholeheartly on that.
Say probably more than, I know this number is probably static compared to your 5.
Oh my goodness, I wish. Talk to me. Yeah, how many emails do we get?
50.
50, okay. That's still manageable in my world. How many?
20.
20? Okay. How many inboxes do we have?
6.
6, okay.
3.
3, okay. That's not bad. All right, you guys are doing good. Yeah, that's not bad with that many amounts. I have one email box just for all my shopping because You know, I don't want all this, yeah, because you need an email to, you know, because then you get all these things. Yes,
I think there's something wrong.
why?
Or-
Let me see. Ooh. No, download it. Yeah, download it first, yeah, and then, ooh.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that guy. See if you can open it there, yeah. You have PowerPoint installed on here?
That's it.
Let me see. Files, or you can do files, or download it, like that. Okay, cool. See if that works. Awesome. So email. So that is probably, I would say, if you're spending too much time on email, AI is your new friend. So we at IUP have Copilot. So if you're not using Copilot, I highly recommend. Do we all know how to get to Copilot? No? All right, we'll figure that out. We'll do that before we leave today. But the easiest way, any administrative task that you hate, I recommend, and most companies are doing this now. So you're dictating your email. So I don't usually, when I'm home, here I have to type because I'll look like a lunatic and you guys all think I'm crazy. But I dictate, I use Super Whisper to dictate most of my emails. And a lot of companies now are coming up with different AI apps to make emails a bit more efficient because that is a big time waster. Okay, so this you want to make sure you have in your notes. So in your notebook, go to that page. I should open it here. Because you want to add, let me open that document so I can tell you where it is. So I can tell you exactly where to go on the page for your notes, or if you're there, let me know, because that would be good. Find that for you. So you should probably be done now with, so hopefully, did anybody write any notes on the impact of MIS in management theory? Probably not. So you should be on, what page number is that? 10 of your notebook. Okay, we're all there? Okay, so this is, because you get questions on this on the test, so you want to make sure you know this. And this is probably the most like history we're gonna have. So basically how it started was with John Locke, right? And so he's considered liberalism. Some people don't like that word, but he developed the labor theory of property. And what that says is that, you know, property ownership is created through exerting work onto natural resources. So what does that mean, right? So you're hopefully going to add value, right? So if you have a cup, you might add value by putting coffee in it or tea, right? So he argued that people should own themselves. And actually, most of our country is and kind of based on this, but people would argue that too. So if you work, then you expect that your work will give you hopefully increased wealth. And that also leads to wealth maximization theory. Theory. Right? So life equals property. So how do you define wealth? What's wealth to you? Is it knowledge? Is it money? Both? Yes.
In accounting terms, I guess it would be your assets and your equity.
Love accounting terms. I love that. Thank you. Yes, your assets and your equity. But in MIS terms, we want to think of it from a property perspective, which is the software, right? Or the computer, right? So, and then, so this is where we start getting a little, you know, and also some people don't like wealth, right? They want to live a minimalist lifestyle. And if you do that, please help me understand because I'm not good at that. So please help me, help Dr. Pat, right? So what you see is the labor theory of property, right? Which basically tells you that, you know, the responsibility of government is to protect our citizens. And we've seen, actually, I think it's 75 a day that Tom Holman is deporting per city per day right now. So to hopefully restore, I guess, private property and protect it or not, right? And then we have Karl Marx, who has said that labor could be accumulated in the form of capital, right? And that's the difference between living labor and accumulated labor. So when you think of labor, that means you have to work, right? So I think some of these theories have been questioned in recent times because what FIRE stands for, like financially independent retirement, something or other, where young people want to retire. If young people retire, you're killing me. You know, you can't retire, you guys are young, right? But there's different changes have happened with these theories, and honestly changes that I didn't see coming. So I'm still shocked. I'm still shocked for a lot of things, but again, that minimalist lifestyle, which I think is brilliant, I just can't do it. So Adam Smith is another person, right? And he actually divided labor into free enterprise as well as individual. So, and this is where then we have nowadays some schools of thought that think that you should redistribute wealth. How do we feel about that? Why should we take all of Elon Musk's money and give it to everybody? Or why should we not do that? Or why should we do that? That's redistribution of wealth. Who worked for that money? Who works like 20 hours a day? Probably Elon Musk, right? He's always on Twitter doing something, right? So why should we redistribute wealth? But some people think that's the right way to do it. Any economists in the room? Anybody studying economics or majoring in economics? Law of supply and demand will tell you why. Capitalism will tell you why not, right? So he believed that, the wealth of a nation depends on the wealth of the individuals of that nation. So you have to decide what you believe in, right? It's kind of nice to live in a superpower, right? Kind of nice to be the top dog, even though what happened today, what was it called? DeepSeek, I think, the Chinese AI. How do we feel about that? So basically the stocks tumbled today. And because China came out and said, oh yeah, we've got a better generative AR than you do. Do you believe them? Yeah, me neither. They've done this, 6 times already? Yeah, no. Why don't we believe them?
We're investing a lot in AI over here, right?
Heck yeah.
Figure we're putting our.
Top people,
Yeah.
right? But what's the Chinese known for? They have to save face, right? It's part of their culture. So they can't fail. But then they come out and say this. And how many times have they done that? Probably in the past, I would say 5 or 6 times that I can recall right off the top of my head. So yeah, really. So if you look at the market today and you have a buying opportunity, right? If you're an optimist. If you're me, you're scared because I hate losing money. But so you have to decide where you end up in all of these theories, right? Because we also have that Smith said the concept of an invisible hand, which basically says that, yeah, individuals and businesses determine what to buy and sell. What economic principle supports that? Supply and demand, right? Exactly, right? So it's like, yeah, if you want something, you will hopefully work for it and buy it. If it's a good price, right? Nobody wants to spend more money than they don't have to. So, and what happens? Well, what are we seeing now with legislation, right? What is DOGE, right? Department of, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Government efficiency.
Thank you. Yeah, so Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk and Vivek, I can't say his last name, but those 2 billionaires are heading up to eliminate this right here. Any type of inefficiencies, so the legislation. So, and I think this is the government, we've had the most people working for the federal government, which is scary in my book, Because, so then we have, still with Adam Smith here, right, and increased efficiencies in labor. So in economics, we have economies of scale, right? And so that's what we're trying to say here, right? If you have anybody specializing to hopefully outperform one task, or you want to decrease the space between tasks and kind of let machines do what they want. The invention of machines here is what we're talking about when it comes to AI, right? And why do I want to decrease the space between 1 or 2 tasks? Yeah, right? No bottlenecks, right? Because what happens in business? We're always doing the same, we have the same problems, we just need new solutions. So if I have a bottleneck, you identified in the system, there's an overload in one process. How do you handle that? What's the first thing you're looking at? There's a system issue. Go ahead.
Like where the data is coming in a stream that's getting tapped in somewhere, so you're trying to find out like where's the thing that it's all gonna loop to one system somewhere and then back out, so you're gonna try and find the one system.
Exactly. And then, so we're looking at the root cause problem right there. And that should be where we attack the situation. We don't always do it that way in business. So, so I will tell you, I wasn't that smart back then. So I didn't, or you find it and then you find other symptoms and you get lost. So that's why it's so important to kind of see what philosophy you believe in, and then also how you can translate that into your MIS system. Then we have Frederick Taylor, right? And so what he did is basically scientific management. So he was a mechanical engineer. How do we feel about engineers? I like them too. My brother's one, So, but that's actually one of, I think it was next to, I think that's engineers, nurses, and truck drivers were the top three shortages of workers in the United States. That was interesting. And but basically what he studied was mostly management of machines and how to kind of make a fortune in industry. So he did the principles of scientific management here, and that basically says that you want to have every part each part of the process should be positive or productive. So how does that relate to the scientific method? What is the scientific method? Where you're hopefully formulating a hypothesis, right? Gathering data. So think of it that way, right? You have a problem, a research problem or a business problem. You formulate a hypothesis, which is basically your best guess of which way it's going to come out. You collect data, you run an experiment, you run data, mostly, preferably, and then you either reject or accept the null, right? So it's very similar here. We're okay? Yeah. Am I talking too fast? No, we're okay, good. Good. So there are 4 pillars of scientific management. So I would highly recommend that you make sure these are in your notes, right? Because every work element should be studied for improvement. And then we have continuous improvement here. And in management, what do we call that? Continuous improvement. Toyota did it? Yes.
CIP.
Okay, but there's also a Japanese word, right? Kaizen, right? That is, so CIP is continuous improvement process. And then we also have Kaizen, right? So that's what Toyota came up with. So you see how we're all intertwined? So we're looking at management, now we're talking about accounting, we're talking about all the fun stuff. We need to add something for marketing, I forget, right? And workers should be scientifically recruited, selected, and trained. That's our HR functions, right? My HR management people. So when I first started in business, I didn't think that was very important, and I got into a lot of trouble because I didn't do things right. So pretty important, I would say IT, HR, and legal are your new best friends if you're on the C-suite. Managers should cooperate with workers. So what management principle does that relate to, right? You got to cooperate. You got to be friends. That's where Dr. Paz gets scared. You need to be friends, right? But if you don't motivate your employees, they're not going to work good for you. And then managers should work as hard as employees. And I think that's Elon's philosophy. Like, he sleeps on the plant floor. He does all of that. So, and these are the 4 pillars of the scientific management, one part. All right. So then we got guiding principles. And so basically some of the ones I think that are still is equity, and usually stability of tenure, right? So with equity, right? Well, actually, I think, did Trump, did he eliminate the DEI initiatives? I think he did, right? Yeah. Okay, so he eliminated that. So there you go. You see in the flesh, you see these are just principles, and you see in the flesh what's happening. Stability of tenure, we usually see that with, obviously, organizations like, for example, at IUP here, we're unionized. So that usually comes around unions or collective bargaining that doesn't matter how, I guess it doesn't matter how good or bad you do your job, tenure matters, right? So if you're on the top of the seniority, bingo, you're on the top of the food chain, right? Unity of command and unity of direction, I think, is where most businesses do well, right? We have a vision, we have a mission, we try to do everything towards that. But then authority and discipline, right? Or where we got to be careful, because you could easily get off the train tracks, like I like to say, right? You want the company to go a certain direction, you want to make sure you're there. Then we have Max Weber. So these are now, like, we're tipping into management again, right? So Max Weber, right, was a German sociologist and economist, and he published The Puritan Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. And I wouldn't read it because it's not fabulous, but I would chat GPT it. It's long. I would chat GPT it so you have an idea of what it's about. But two things that basically he believed in was the monopoly on physical force. So what do you think is the monopoly of physical force for the United States? Yes,
Military?
absolutely, right? So that's what we do here. And then, right, wrote that efficient organizations are best described as bureaucracies, in which management competencies are supported by rules and organizational regulations. Do you think that's a bureaucracy, or do you think that's a good standard operating procedure? What happens if people don't have rules? Or the wild, wild west, right? What happens? So, but what is the fine line, right? Because do you have stagnation by regulation? Right, which some companies do. So again, you have to see where, so the whole purpose of this is just to see where you fall and what you think, because everybody has an opinion, right? And so we want to make sure. So there's 9 principles that he wrote about: specialization, recruitment based on competency. So should the most qualified person get the job? One would think, right? And so if you have a skill that somebody else doesn't, I want to pay you a premium for that skill. So that's what he's really talking about. And then employment stability. So what happens if, when you go to a job interview and they ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you say? What's your dream job? Give me a dream job. Failed the interviews. No, come on. You don't have a dream job? Like a race car driver, or astronaut or anything?
Maybe
Yeah.
like a sports analyst and writer, maybe.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So where do you see yourself in 5 years if you're going for an interview in that field?
I'd be like at this company doing this, doing that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't see longevity with the company, you're not going to take the job, right? If you want growth, if like I wanted to be in the C-suite. So if I was a company that growth was taking too long, I'm out, right? So that's what employment stability means. And there's, discipline and authority. You've seen that a lot. Supremacy of abstract rules, authority of the office, not the individual. So that's the president of the United States, right? You respect the office, maybe not the individual all the time, but that's what, and that actually comes very important in business. And I don't know if we've established political neutrality, because I think it was the Washington Post, the paper that Bezos owns, they chose not to endorse any candidate, right? Did I say that? Yeah, so I think he did pretty good with political neutrality. And then we have more theories just to drive you insane, right? So we have Mary Parker Follett, right? And she basically was a management theorist. So you see, we're still bringing in all these theories from management. We're trying to be together. And then sources of true power are competence and expertise. I love that, right? Some people would say money is power too, but maybe you need the money to get the competence and the expertise. Mm-hmm. And then there could be conflicts between managers and employees. We also have what's known as the agency theory. And so the agency theory states that you as an employee are an agent for the company, but there's opposing views, right? Because the company wants to maximize shareholder wealth, and you want to maximize, hopefully, your own wealth. So that's where those theories come in. Then we have Elton Mayo, right? And he did the Hawthorne studies and basically the human problems of industrialized civilization and how our behavior impacts productivity. And we don't like that from a business perspective, right? And so basically he was more into classical management theory. So is anybody taking management 310 this term? Oh, cool. So this will be a little repetitive. So you'll know it for that. Huh?
I just got switched in.
Oh, okay. So they'll talk a little bit about this too. And then he proposed that employees need to feel they are a significant economic value. Right? And so otherwise they'll get tired and be less productive. But lately we see that a lot of employees want work-life balance, right? And so that's a good thing to kind of say that you're not fatigued, but does that give you the significant economic value? So we have Theory X and Theory Y managers. So Douglas McGregor, right? He was an MIT professor and he did the human side of enterprise. Anybody study emotional intelligence? I don't have any, so. So yeah, so if you do, let me know what that is, because basically what we're saying here is that, you know, many managers, like they depend, it's usually on their attitude. Most people will say you usually leave a company because of your boss, right? And so you don't like that manager or their attitude or how they make you feel. So Theory X tells you that employees are naturally disinclined towards work and they need to be controlled and observed. Whereas Theory Y says, yeah, you can be empowered. So think of micromanaging, right? Don't be that manager, please. You know, don't do that. Who wants to have somebody on your back, right? Telling you what to do. But do check. I say trust but verify, but check, because you never know. So where do we lie in this? Are we Theory X or Theory Y? Yes.
Why?
Yeah, I like Y too. Why? Yeah. Yeah, I don't want somebody on my back. It's like, if you hired me, trust me. But the problem that employers have said to me is that students, when they get out of college, they don't ask questions, right? So they sit there, and I had that happen to me. I had a senior accountant sit there, said, well, I didn't know where to find that. I said, you didn't think to ask? You sat here for 2.5 hours wasting my time. This should have been done, right? So you just need to ask questions. And so sometimes people don't like to do that. And Peter Drucker is one of my favorites. This one, I love Peter Drucker. He is considered the guru of management. And what he believes is what I like: decentralized corporations work best, outsource what you don't do well, and then focus on areas that you have a comparative advantage. So when you think of multinational corporations, does that follow what Drucker was telling us? So what's a multinational corporation? Yes.
Company that operates in different, like, multiple nations at once.
It could be nations, or it could be different product lines. Like think Procter and Gamble, right? Look at all the products they make. GE also used to have I don't know if they still do. Well, when what's his name? Well, Jack Welch was there. GE was had a finance arm, and they had other arms. And so what you're thinking here is decentralized, but to outsource what you don't do well. So then we have a conflict with multinational corporations, right? Because then you're trying to do everything. Can you really make Tide and all the other products that Procter and Gamble make? Some companies do it well, right? And some companies don't. So again, take these as just theoretical constructs to hopefully prove a point in business at one point, and then go from there. So now we should be, let me see. Let's see where we should be in our notes. So we covered all the theorists, I think, and we went to Drucker. So we should be now on page 13 of your concept notebook, correct? Okay, good. Sounds right. Keep me honest. You never know. So now when you're here is mainframes. So this has changed quite a bit. So I would say mainframe computers were really like the coup de grace. We would have either a blade server, we would have different types, and it used to be very expensive to store data. I don't think it's as expensive anymore because we're all in the cloud. And actually, I think one of the good things that came from COVID was the portability, right? And the remote aspect of it. So now if you had a job that you had to go in the office 5 days, 3 days, or 1 day, which one would you want? Or fully remote, let's say. 5, 3, or fully remote. Which would you like?
Fully remote.
Me too. I love fully remote. I would be behind Zoom my whole life. Yes.
3 days.
3 days? Okay, because you want to socialize. You want to see people? You so good liking people. I love it. Love it. Anybody else in the middle? Well, so we have, anybody want to go in 5 days? Yes? Oh, I just met a person like that. One of the controllers that I know, she actually gave up her full remote job to be in the office 5 days. God bless her.
I'll do 5 days.
You do 5 days too? You're a people person. That's nice. That's nice. People scare me. Students are great, but people scare me. So do you think, I think I'm most productive at home. because I could just sit behind a computer and work. But I'm also not as social, I think, you know? But now you see how we have to cater to all of these, right? Isn't that crazy? But now with mainframes, we do have the ability to kind of plug in anywhere, which also leads to the fact that because of MIS systems, we don't have a good work-life balance, right? Or it's not 50-50. And some people would argue it's not 50-50 when you're married either, but hey, what can I say? You know? So when we have personal computers, what we all have, obviously, and you know, well, no longer Skype or WebEx is still pretty good. I don't think Skype is, I think that's been replaced. We used to use Skype quite a bit in the office, but basically what we have now is mostly, I would say, Zoom, Teams. I heard you guys talking about Teams, right? So those are all the fun areas that now we can have. And the spreadsheets. Who doesn't love a good spreadsheet? I gave you one for our schedule. So nice. And the cloud. I would say if you are, most businesses, you're either a Microsoft organization or a Google organization, I would say. What do you think IUP is? Microsoft, yeah, exactly. So we're a Microsoft organization. And basically, if you are not using OneDrive, I would highly recommend it. Don't keep your files on your own laptop because your laptop, unless you're backing up. So if you're on a Mac, I know Time Machine. What do you guys use on a Windows to back up? I only use my Windows for data analysis. Yes.
I use a combination of things, but I have OneDrive between multiple devices, and then I also have certain files that I'll put on like different hosting services like Mega or Google Drive.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I do a lot of Google Drive too with some of my co-authors. And then, but like I know with Mac, you can back up your whole machine. I used to use Carbonite, I guess, on my Windows for a backup, but now I don't because I just have everything on the Mac. The only thing I need Windows for is data analytics, pretty much. So what is a server? Basically, it's what you designate for a specific purpose. So like I said, I had blade servers. I had a payroll server. I also had just one for customer data. So you want to separate that. Now that's a little bit blurred because most everything is, I would say, on some type of cloud-based network, especially because most organizations, they give you, like if I hired you, I gave you a computer, I gave you a phone, and I owned you. You know, I wanted you to work on everything I wanted you to work with. I didn't care where you worked. I just wanted you to work. So to your point of the 50 people, because you can't do everything, right? So I needed you to do certain things. And then you have business networks. So we try to put things internally and you protect it behind a firewall. And you can't be as, you can never be more careful than with your networks, right? So you want a VPN, a virtual private network. You want an intranet, make sure that only data is in there. Like IUP does that a lot. You have to log in, right, before. And then preferably, I highly recommend like what we do here, which is a single sign-on, because it just makes life easier for the end user. Maybe not so easy for the IT folks, but it does make it easier. Cloud computing is the way to go. I think, you know, most everything that you can do can be stored on the cloud. The issue with cloud computing is cybersecurity and data protection. You got to be careful. So you got to trust the process, but you may also need to make sure that you're still maintaining it. So, and that's why I say you want everything. Well, I don't even think nowadays, like I haven't received a disk to, I usually can download everything. Like if you get a TurboTax or ProTax, you can download everything over the internet. Has anybody like actually gotten like a disk to insert to get software? I don't think I've done that in years. Yeah, right? I don't think that's available anymore either. Cash registers, those are point of sales. We love cash, right? It's the first thing, cash is king, like I like to say. So that was probably one of the first MIS systems that were developed. And then it was a big deal too. I remember when the older cash registers didn't give you the change, right? You had to figure it out in your head. And then when the newer cash registers gave you the actual amount that you have to give back to the customer, everybody said we became stupid. I don't think we did. You know, I just said the computer works good for you, right? But do you still, when you go to the store, do you like confirm if you're paying cash? Well, how many of us pay cash? I don't think I've paid. Yeah, right. Yeah. Only if it's like a place that I have to. Usually. I guess.
I even have it. Some of them don't even carry cash mainly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because you can do everything with Apple Wallet, right? Or whatever. Yeah. So, but when you do, I guess, yeah, if you're paying cash, like I usually try to, I calculate it to make sure they're giving me the right money back. Because again, you're just trusting but verifying. But some people don't even do that. So it's a point of sale system is what pretty much a cash register is. And the more difficult, products, then you would have a more sophisticated point of sale system. So usually it allows you to track sales and taxes and everything else. And because we don't want to mess up the taxes because they charge you penalties and fees and all that jazz. And then you can usually put it with like, so this Micker checks here, this was a lifesaver for me as a CFO. So I had about 17 accounts. And so that means 17 accounts with 17 different checks, right? So what the Micker allowed, so what happens if you're going to do an AP run, right? An accounts payable run? What did my poor AP clerk do? She put in the wrong checks for the wrong account, right? So a Micker solves that problem. So then you let the computer, and then it makes the little bottom of the check for you. So it's like about it was about $5,000, probably more now, but it just, that way the computer automatically decides, so what if you're linking through it. So that saved us a lot of money. RFID tags is what I use for all of my property, plant, and equipment, anything of high value. And then, and now I guess an RFID tag would be like those air tags, right? So you can find your keys or what have you, something similar. So see, so it's advancing. And we talked about cloud computing and then mobile stations. So this is what now, I think it's only in are there any restaurants in Pittsburgh that bring you out your food in the robot? Oh, bummer. Because they do that in Miami. So that was pretty cool. Now, would you be okay with that if somebody like a robot brought you your food?
I think it's a better like bottom line for the restaurant, but at the same time, I think you can make a lot more money with actual people servers.
Oh, you do?
Like, I'm not gonna tip a server, or I'm not gonna tip a robot. It's a robot. I'm like, but if a person comes out, then you're gonna end up tipping that person, which
That's a good point. I like that.
the
Yeah.
restaurant then can, and you still have to pay the person when the person brings some tips. You have tip share, it can change in different ways, stuff like that.
I like that. Yes.
Major question I just had is this robot being cleaned?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I do think I would say when I experienced that in Miami, it had like little quadrants. Yeah. So, and then you could get yours, but I don't know if it was being cleaned, but it did have quadrants and it was like sealed. So that was true. I just thought it was pretty cool, but it's like a point of service, station. Or have you like been to a restaurant where you could reorder your drinks or something on that little, yeah. So that's kind of similar to like one of those mobile point of service stations. So have you done that or do you ask for your drinks to the person? So like I'll reorder my drink through the machine. It's like, yeah, give me another one of those. Those were yummy. Or give me some more of that. That was yummy too. Yeah. So that was yummy. All right. So we will, let's see. So McDonald's, I think Amazon also, you can go into one of their stores and then you can you could just buy everything and then it'll charge you. And then Square Inc. was definitely probably one of the main ones that, especially for like beauty salons and things of that nature, that they just put all of it, just like your card, like you saw there. And then we have a bunch of cloud-based ones as well. All right, so we will pick up on here, right? Because I think I'm running out of time. And what slide is this? 20. We'll pick up on here, and hopefully you've been keeping along with the notebook, right? Okay, cool. All right, we'll pick up on here on Wednesday. Thank you for coming to class. Any questions on Zoom? You guys good?
I just downloaded it again.
I like to give plenty of time. Excellent. So I guess there was some issues with putting your notes in here. So the reason, since there is really no textbook, I still got a few questions last night, like, should I buy the textbook or should I buy the Connect? You only buy the Connect. There is really, I don't think there's a textbook with this. It's because Master Connect doesn't have a textbook. It's supposed to be all online. So the closest is this guy here. So I recommend putting your notes in here, but that's just my recommendation because you have the information here. So that's the only reason I recommend that. But if it's something you don't like, then you can put your notes somewhere else. I just kind of like it all together. But sometimes working in a PDF, and when I did export it into Word, it didn't come out as pretty because I don't know. So I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, it's up to you how you want. Did anybody take notes on this and it was okay or okay? Not bad. Like you could type in it, right? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, well, at least one person's taking notes, thank you. That's nice. Awesome, so let me open up this thing so I don't forget. And so we were on 529, so we'll definitely finish that today and probably go into management systems. So let's see here. I think we were here on employee scheduling before we lost all track of time. Excellent. So we don't mess with that. And then let me make sure I open this so I could tell you what page we are on this little guy, because that's important too. So let's see, this is, I need guide one. Let's see. So let's see, so we talked about the theorists, all of them. Highly recommend taking good notes on the theorists because you will see questions on the test, but we'll go over some of those. And then we did talk about mainframes, we talked about point of sale. So we should be on page 15 of the notes. Okay, that's where we should be on a good day. Excellent. Any questions before we get started? Let me check my chat because I missed a question in the last class and I hate when I do that. You can always unmute yourself on Zoom too. Everybody get? Yeah. Okay, let's get started then. So employee scheduling tools. I don't know, I think these are a necessary evil, but not my favorite. Because basically I do not want, I hate administrative things like that, so I hate punching in and out. But if you do work in a big four firm, then yes, you will have to keep track of every 15 minutes of your life, which is crazy. But usually what we try to do here is to increase, any type of efficiencies. And then we can also maintain the scheduling of tasks, right? Because if, like, for example, here, I guess it's not really an employee scheduling tool, but our class scheduling tool at IUP is called Live 25. So we have something similar to that. And so it just basically gives you anything that you need that might be helpful. So here we give some examples of nursing, aircrew. Obviously, you can't have two airplanes on. Did you hear that? That I think all the airlines are now having a dress code? Yeah, like you can't have any offensive tattoos. Obviously, you need to wear shoes because apparently people weren't doing that. I was shocked. No wonder I don't like to travel. Can you imagine you're on a plane and somebody just takes off their shoes? Like, that's not proper. That's not good. But anyway, so there's a new dress code for that. And so, yeah, you can't have any offensive tattoos, anything that's see-through or revealing, because apparently there was a lot of arguments or fights or everything. And I think it was Spirit, right? Because I know that their lowest airfare is like $25. Can you believe that? Like, how do you get the airplane up in the air? I don't know. That's all about scheduling. So then you have decision support systems. So these are what most companies use, right? And so here's where your middle managers come in, and we're trying to figure out here how to put all the inputs together. ERPs could be part of this, like Chicago. Oh, anybody been to Chicago O'Hare and not been delayed? Every time I go to that bloody airport, it's delayed. If you live in Chicago, I'm sorry. But it's always delayed. I swear to God, I never get out of there. So that was one of the first applications. Maybe this DSS at Chicago isn't doing so great because we get delayed, like what the heck, what's wrong with that? So it really irks me, but anyway, if you're in Chicago, I'm sorry, and it's supposed to give you real-time guidance. So not batch processing, right? Because batch processing, then you're in trouble, right? So that we do in one big batch. So we can do that for maybe accounting, we can probably do that for HR, but anything that's time sensitive, like airplanes, we can't do that, right? So we definitely cannot handle that. And so then it's used, and also medical personnel are using quite a bit of this. Has anybody done one of those like teleport visits, like where you're just talking to your doctor via Zoom or something like that? How was that? Was it good?
It was nice.
It was nice. Okay, cool. I haven't done that. I don't think my doctor's up to date. Little bugger. I don't want to see him. So was it like? Did you feel like the same inpatient experience, or?
Yeah, because it was a counseling type appointment.
Oh, okay.
It saves me from having to drive out to Altoona, so.
Well, that's nice, yeah. Yeah, I gotta try that, I gotta go look into that for my doctor, because a lot of medical patients are doing that. And also, especially with and then also they're using AI to diagnose patients now, so one of the, I think, main initiatives that the $500,000 Trump, AI thing is to be able to put in files into AI so that it could detect hopefully cancers or certain things before. So how would you feel if your whole, I guess you have to feel comfortable with your medical history going into AI. And I don't know, but if it's going to save a life or make you less painful, maybe. And it's also supposed to do quite a bit with helping with blindness and certain factors like that. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I didn't think of that. Awesome. All right. So where are we at? So supply chain management. Who is our supply chain management majors? Anybody? Nobody's majoring in supply chain here? Okay. All right. Well, but actually one of these, so this obviously, I think we found quite a bit of it to be a challenge during COVID, right? Because we noticed that I don't think we've gotten over that. I still feel like I go to Walmart and there's a lot of empty shelves. Or maybe because I'm just want everything full. But I mean, do you feel, and I also feel like things are not in stock as much as they used to be. But basically what you're doing here is you're trying to bring in all of the components that you need and base it through a computer software, obviously. And then pretty much just make sure that you have your planning, your sourcing, so that you get, which is usually your partners and suppliers. Obviously, if you're manufacturing something, that's your operations and logistics. I think this is where, I think these were the major breakdowns during COVID, in my view. Obviously the items they were being purchased probably more than they should. And then they were not put in the right, not delivered to where they should be when they should have been. But, can't get everything right. So this RFID tagging really helps. So it's basically a tag on an item, right? So I guess it's similar to our air tags like we talked about, that you can find people. How do we feel about that? That you could be located, on your phone, you could be located wherever you're at. Some people say that's an invasion of privacy. I would probably say it's safety, but I'm a nervous Nelly. We don't care. Okay. Okay, well, that's okay. Then we have to eliminate this bullwhip effect, where if you have a small error, it could really lead to a lot of production errors or inventory errors. And this happened to Hershey a bit ago. I think it was maybe 4 years ago, where they didn't actually plan for Halloween accurately. And then there was a shortage of Hershey candies, which I didn't know until I read the case, which was interesting. So how do you screw up if it's like a florist, right? Don't florists make the most money on Valentine's Day? So how do you screw that up if that's your business? We do, unfortunately. So then we have HR, right? Human resource management systems. And so here, it goes through obviously the mainframes, the client servers, and the cloud-based. This is where we're at now. So Workday, I think it's UKG, ADP, those are more in this cloud-based area and where you could do a one-stop shop. And then Workday and several of the others, they also allow for learning and benefits to be in there, so you can change everything all at once. And even the onboarding process is pretty cool too. And so, but then the whole reason we do this, I would say in an HR perspective, obviously you want recruiting and selection and the hiring practices, right? Because if you don't collect everything when you need it, you're in trouble. And then if you don't pay employees, you don't know. And also if you don't promote employees, then they don't stay. So you want to be careful about that too. So it just gives you a bunch of analytics. So when you didn't think that numbers were involved with people, numbers are involved and computers are involved almost everywhere, which is lovely. Anyway, so then we have marketing. All right, so who are my marketing majors? We got to have a few here. Great, because Lord knows I don't know diddly squat about marketing. I'm not creative. So my marketing majors, what is it what's the 4 P's of marketing, right? It's price, promotion, placement. What's the other P? I forget. Google that for me. What's the 4 P's of marketing? There's 4 P's, I thought, of marketing.
Brand.
Huh?
Brand.
Price, I think. Price, right? Maybe I'm missing that one.
Product, price, place, and promote.
That's what it was.
What is it?
Product, price, place, and promote.
Yeah, excellent. Product, price, placement, and promotion. Cool, thank you. See, I knew there was something. You know, I'm not very good at it. All I know is that we did spend at my company a lot of money on marketing, but you have to. So I would say one of the major marketing systems that I think does a great job is Google. So Google Analytics will give you a lot of information, like especially if you're e-commerce type, so that you pay top dollar for. And that's where you get your analyzing of your data, because obviously if you don't get the product to the customer when you need, it sucks. And then the information that they collect, I would say, marketers, I guess, usually focus on customer and advertising. And then myself as a CFO, I tended to focus on industry trends because I wanted to see what others were doing and see if we should be doing that too. I think the biggest budget in most companies also is advertising. So, and you have different types of marketing software that you could use. I'm not familiar. The only one I think I've dealt with is HubSpot. The others I haven't really dealt with. Anybody deal with any of those? Yeah, so that was the only, and Google Analytics was the one I dealt with the most. But basically, but I do love cost benefit analysis, which is basically, right, you should have more benefit than the cost. That's how I think you should live your life, right? If it's painful, don't do it, right? But if it's, or, if there's a cost to everything, right? There's a cost to being here, but hopefully there's a good benefit. And if there's too much cost and no benefit, don't do it. Just don't do it. But marketing does give us quite a bit. So your learning management system, that is what I'm most familiar with, because especially since academia, right? So D2L, do you know what D2L stands for? Yes.
Desire to learn.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that until recently either. So it's like, okay, things I learn every day. Oh, I also learned today, if you're on a Windows computer, Shift Windows S lets you take a screenshot. I did not know that. Little things that you guys teach me all sorts of great things. So learning management systems basically is our D2L, and that's what helps us. So Blackboard and Canvas are other ones. Let me see, who am I missing? Those are the main ones. Moodle is another one, but that's ugly. I don't really like that one. I would say Canvas and D2L are probably the better ones. I'm not a fan of Blackboard, even though they just came out with Blackboard Ultra. So I'm going to attend a training on that one to see how it is, because you got to know what's happening in the industry. But a lot of companies use LMSs to train, right? So you can develop in-house. I mean, there's a lot of companies that outsource everything, but I don't know if you've ever worked somewhere, you'll see like Know2be is like the head of security training now, or cybersecurity training. So an LMS can kind of get you there. Then you have an executive support system and an executive information system. So they're both kind of like the same things. And so this is what I like to say as your dashboard to get everything out. So this is the reports, and I would add here dashboards as well, and that's what you kind of give to your C-suite. So that way they know what they're doing. So I created it was called Puro Fab, because my favorite word was fabulous. So it was financial analysis and benchmarking. And basically I gave a dashboard to the VP of sales, to the, the chief marketing officer, to the COO, to the CEO. So everybody had their kind of support system so they can run the company hopefully as best as possible. So I highly recommend these because it saves a lot of time. And this drill down capacity saves a lot of time and questions now. So I think PeopleSoft was one of the first software companies that I was familiar with that started this drill down feature that you can just keep digging and digging down. So it works. And then we have ERP, which, like I said, I've done one semi-successfully and one not so successfully. So basically you're taking everything and you're trying to put it together to make a unified system. So you're using IT and you're trying to use all of the business models and coordinate everything. So you've got finance, accounting, HR, payroll, I mean, you name it, production, shipping, everything. And the hard part is, at least in my experience, was you have a lot of legacy systems and then they don't talk to each other. Then you have like an intermediary system, and then that creates even more headaches. So it's a lot of information, but it works wonderfully when it works. I think right now SAP and Oracle are probably the top ERP systems because they work, and they're also the top accounting systems. So usually a lot of the information comes from accounting or from the CRM, the customer relationship management too. And then you have work-life balance. Do you think that can exist? Yeah. Okay, on.
first benchmark would be like where you're at in life,
Okay, where you're at in life, that's good.
but like you're on the younger side and you're first starting off. If you want to be the most successful, I feel like you shouldn't strive for balance.
Okay,
Like you should get the most workout that you can because your body can handle it, your mental, depending on who you are, can handle it. Once you get settled into whatever you're doing, and you have the time slash like you can take time because you can handle it because you're set up,
right.
then you can strive for more balance. But then on the back end, you can.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what I did. So I think you can, I'm not very good at work-life balance. I just tend to work. But I do agree. I think you have to push when you're young because your bones will hurt later, I promise. You know, and I think you have to work hard when you're younger. But we have seen a societal shift where the work-life balance has been across all generations, which is interesting because that didn't happen before. Usually you get out of school, you work your butt off, and then you make money. And then you hopefully don't have to do that. But now also, it seems like everybody's working their butt off. So who knows? But there is, so some of the benefits is like flex time. Now, would you want, you know, a lot of people want like telecommuting or working from home, remote working. Would you rather have time off or would you rather have money if you had an additional incentive from work? Who would want the time off? What do you want? Which one would you like?
Money.
Money. I'm with you. Money talks, everything else walks in my world, but money is power, right? It lets you buy things. They say money can't buy happiness, though. Said you could sure as heck try. You know, I think, but that's just my opinion. Anybody would take the time. Yes? Okay. Yeah, time is valuable too, and time is finite. We all have the same amount of time. So that's lovely. Yeah, so we have like that quite a bit of that here at IUP where a lot of people take the time. So it's interesting. Awesome. So hopefully strategies for work-life balance. I think this is very underrated, especially in high stress, you know, environments and industries like IT, that if you have a breach, there's no breaks, right? Or if you have a system go down that you need, there is no breaks. You're working nonstop to get it. But you know, you hopefully guard your steps and you hopefully kind of protect the system so that it doesn't go bad, but it should also make you have goals each day. So I know one strategy that I learned early on is you just write a few things that you want to do, 3 to 5 things that you want to do a day. And then usually you feel good if you've done some of those things. So, but I think we minimize a lot of this. There's actually a wellness, now that we're talking about this, let me look it up a minute. A wellness session. I think it's, February 5th from 3:30 to 5. So right after our class, it's in 216 Jane Leonard Hall. I don't know, where's Jane Leonard Hall?
That's the humanities building.
Yeah, it used to be interesting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just stay here. You know? Okay, so if you go, I'll give you extra credit. I think that would be lovely. You know, so that way if we don't do great on the tests, and all you got to do is go, and then I'll pop in our class a little like extra credit. All you just write a little paragraph of what you learned. So, and I'll put it in our class. So it's Designing Your Life Career and Wellness Workshop, and it's right after our class on February 5th. I'll put it in there, and I'll give you extra credit to like help you with this work-life balance type of deal, because I need all the help I can get. Okay, this is one of my favorite topics in the whole wide world, data analytics. So I do teach data analytics here for accounting and for business. And so I think this is the wave of the future. If you love numbers or are able to understand statistics or make sense of numbers, this will get you a really good job. And so it actually, my statistical background and the fact that I was doing my doctorate got me my CFO job because I can forecast and I can do time series. So I highly recommend data analytics. And it usually, obviously you don't, from an IT side, you create the algorithms, right? But then from an analytics side, you have to interpret them. So I think there's more and more opportunities now for us to get the data from the programmers and get that, and then we analyze it. And I think that's the most fun. And it really helps a lot of organizations. And we also say now we need to make data-driven decisions. That's like a big thing. And that's how we do it. And then we have employee monitoring technology. So here, what we've done is this has actually saved me a few times in business when I was a CFO because I was able to mirror the person's computer that I thought might have been giving us, like doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. So, and then the person thought, well, this is my computer. No, it isn't. It's my computer. It's a company computer. And when you sign to actually be an employee, you sign that you're going to adhere to all the policies. And then and nobody really reads all of that. But usually there's a lot of attorneys and companies pay a lot of money to make sure that we can spy on you. So you can see what you do. So if you have a company computer, a company phone, any type of tracking device like a fob to get into banks or something, or a key card, those are all company property. So yeah, so some people think it's an invasion of privacy, but usually when you sign on the dotted line and we pay you money, we can do all of that. Video conferencing we're all familiar with, right? Zoom is like the one that we use here. There's WebEx, there's Ring Central, there's a whole bunch of items, but this is what's also making it's making areas transparent. Right. So when I was in business, there was one of the companies that was in Vicenza, Italy. So, time differences to travel, even though I think it would have been nice to go to Vicenza. Italy's not a bad place, right? I don't know if I'd go to Alaska now because it's bloody cold, but Hawaii's sounding good. But this way you could just be there and not have to do anything. Flex time is usually if you work overtime, then you get extra time off. So that would be helpful for some people. And usually if you're working from home, then some of them consider that like telecommuting or remote working flex time, but technically it's basically we want you to do more and be better and faster. And so the problem that we have with flex time, especially if so some people say that if you're not physically there, like I think then it's not the same experience. So I think for certain things, like if I were teaching an instrument, I think we all have to be in the same room, right? Because, well, I don't know how to play an instrument, but I think certain aspects we can do remotely, but some people think no aspects. So some people had said actually the medical that you should go see your doctor. I think for certain things you have to, but if it's just a consultation, then I think you can do it telecommuting, but there is issues with that. And what companies are finding out, well, I think Trump ordered, right? You have to return to work, and if you don't want to, you get 8 months severance. What would you do if you were one of those government employees? So you've been probably home, I think it's been 4 years, maybe some 5. And now they say you have to go into work every day. Would you take a severance or would you go? Oh, a severance is the 8 months. So basically they say quit now, we'll give you 8 months pay so you can find another job. Yeah, And anytime, if you're ever, I recommend once you're upper level management, put in your contract a severance. So when I left as a CFO, I got like a year's pay because that was written into my contract, even though I was the one that was leaving. But as long as I did certain things, like I had to come back and make sure everything was still running. But yeah, so you usually it's for public companies, you'll get options. But yeah, so what would you do? Would you keep your job or would you try to find another one at home if you were at home? What would you do?
That depends on if I like my job.
Okay.
If it was something that I could see myself retiring doing, I would try to keep it. If it was something that was just kind of a step along the way, I'd take the severance and then go find that next step.
I agree. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
I agree with.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So if you want to do it, you do it. And so, but the reason I think that was done is because there's anticipated, I forget how many millions of people work for the government, but I think it's like 3 million that are overstaffed for agencies. And so that's why that's what we've done to try to do that DOGE, right? Department of Government Efficiency, to try to reduce trillions of dollars of debt. So see how that works out. Telecommuting, right? Where you work from home or you go to other places to conduct your business. I see a lot of people going to like coffee shops. I don't know, do you work I can't work if a lot of people are around. I don't know. But I do see a lot of people going to coffee shops to work, or I do see some what they call satellite campuses for certain jobs. And so that like you have to go to this camp, this location, that location to do it. Can you get work done in a noisy place?
I think that's very individual.
Yeah.
It's like some people can
Tune out.
that sort of thing, and then other people they need a dedicated space.
And some people need to see other people too. You know, like I did have a few people that just went back to work, you know, in the office because they need fun stuff like that. Well, online classes, so how do we, well, you guys are all here, so I take it you like face-to-face sessions better. But there's a lot of students that like a hybrid or like online classes. And what's your favorite modality of learning? That's probably a good question. What do you like?
For learning, I prefer face-to-face just because it has a bigger impact for me.
Okay. Excellent. Anybody like online learning?
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah, you need a lot of discipline, right?
Yeah, it's like if you're not, you're mean enough to like sit there and choose a place where you know you're gonna pay attention. it's
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, that's true. Yes.
And adding to that, when it comes to online classes, the deadlines get me because I don't have like an anchor point on mine.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, it's funny that you say that because I do teach online classes and students have told me that. So now I just have like 4 dates, like right before the midterm or right before the final or 2 dates, you know, that's it. That's all you need to worry about because then it gets cumbersome and not everybody works the same way. So, but that is becoming more and more of challenges for companies as well with telecommunicating, green computing and sustainability. A lot of practices like 4-day work weeks are a big shift and efficient meetings. So I know I started, it's Patrick Leocencio. He does a lot of books like Death by Meeting, and he did, you know, there was like, he does like the how to be a CEO, a whole bunch of business books. And one of the, I think it was in Death by Meetings, have a stand-up meeting. So every day, like I don't, you know, don't sit down. Let's go. We got 5 minutes. Tell me what you're gonna do, whatever. So we would do that a lot in business because it was just easy. Like, yeah, don't get comfy. You know, let's go get out of there. And all of this that I tell you now could easily change, right? And so, has anybody used ZipRecruiter? Or like Indeed or anything? Yeah, we use those. Yeah, right. And so we do now a lot of, you know, things that are more online, and things are changing, right? We used to be, has anybody done an interview by themselves where you log into a system and it asks you questions and then you just have to record yourself? There's nobody on the other end. That's a new tool that a lot of the HR departments are using now. So they kind of gauge you to see how comfortable you are in front of the camera. And also they only give you the question and then you have 30 seconds to formulate your answer to see how you think on your feet. You know, so that's definitely something that a lot of employers are doing as well. And then just a bunch of changes, like IT is becoming more, how quickly can we conduct business? How quickly can we do it on the most portable devices? Also, what kind of services can we offer? We're always looking for bigger, better, faster. May not always be right, but we are. And we're done with this one. Exciting? No? Okay. Excellent. So you finished. So now all you've got to do for this piece here, this is, don't say that guy. And then we go back into hopefully D2L here. She'll pop open. Oh, here she is. So just as a reminder, so hopefully you have completed this piece here now that we went over everything. So I would say you want to take your notes in that, because if it becomes too much material for the midterm, I think we'll gauge it as we go, but I think we might use notes for the midterm because we do throw out a lot of concepts out here. And so I taught this in the winter and I let them use notes, but that was because it was 3 weeks, but it's still like 7 weeks. And each one of these probably has 2. Yeah, I think notes would be all right. How do we feel? We don't want to memorize any of that stuff, right? Because I mean, I don't want to memorize anything, period. But yeah, so I think if we would be kind enough to take your notes, that way you can use these probably on your test. We'll see. I'm pretty sure, because there's a lot of stuff and each one of these is like a bunch of things all over the place. Okay, so that's what you should have done. And then for this chapter here is investigating MIS. I do believe you have, wait, get rid of this. So I think you have an alternative learning assignment here. So now you can do this, hopefully. And then hopefully after Friday, you can do the other one. And then, so this alternative learning assignment is like a smart book, you know, so it kind of helps you. And then here's your case study. So you go through that and you should have unlimited attempts on these. So that way if you don't get it right the first time, because this is all new to you probably. And so hopefully you can do it again. And then you have the quiz. So, and all of them, everything is, I think, all worth 10 points. Let me check. Because I change my mind regularly. I do. Yeah, they're all worth 10 points. It's just your video cases that are worth 5 points. So now you should be able to do all of that fun stuff. And now you should open up the other concept notebook here for module 7, because that is management systems. And you should open that so you can start taking your notes from that one. So I'll give you a second to do that so I can do it too. So I can guide you through there. So let's see. Let's see here. And so this guy should be about 26 pages. How exciting. That open so we can go through that one. Should be back here, I think. Yeah. So we are on that one. So get rid of this one. Perfect. We should be here. No, I've closed the wrong one. Darn it. Darn it. Always do that. Closing the wrong one. And I just posted because I didn't realize actually that let me actually show you guys this because since it's in. So I just posted an announcement. If you see it like this for you, click allow and then it'll show you, I'll try to do this each week, how much each item is and what you should be doing this week. And I try to make it pretty so that you would look at it and read it on a good day. So yeah, so I try to tell you what you have to do there and that way, and then I give you the dates at the top because since for our class, there's only a couple of dates like right before the midterm and right before the final. So hopefully that helps a little or a lot or not at all. Let's see. Let me bring this back so I can find that other one. And then I'll add, similar to here, I'll add all of this each time so that way you can have it